In a moment, I'm going to talk to the stars and the subjects of Clint Eastwood's new movie, 1517 to Paris. But first, some more Hollywood news. There is early hype emerging once again for the sequel of Mel Gibson's Passion of the Christ. Actor Jim Caviezel, in an interview with USA Today, suggested that The Resurrection will be the biggest film of all time. The Hollywood Reporter is claiming that Caviezel is in talks to reprise his role as Jesus. Caviezel was tight-lipped about the movie, but he told USA Today, "There are things that I cannot say that will shock the audience, but I'll tell you this much, the film Gibson is going to do is going to be the biggest film in history. It's that good," end quote. About a year ago, Mel Gibson told me in an exclusive interview that the Passion sequel would be anything but predictable.
It's a vast theological experience, and I think you need to delve into what that means in a way that you take that as the centerpiece and you juxtapose it against many things that go on around it and in other realms. So that you have to it gets pretty wild. It's like an acid trip, but I think
with the saints, it's okay.
Yeah, right. It's okay.
Okay.
You have a spirit guide to take you through
That's
it.
right.
Yeah. So, that's like.
The release of The Resurrection is not expected for at least another year or two. Now, speaking of movies, Clint Eastwood's new film, The 1517 to Paris, opens nationwide next week. It tells the remarkable story of three Americans traveling together in Europe in 2015 who thwart a terrorist attack on a passenger train. The film is even more remarkable for featuring the story's real-life heroes, all non-actors, starring as themselves. I sat down with them recently, Anthony Sadler, Spencer Stone, and ALEK SKARLATOS, right here in our DC studio. Watch. Spencer, I want to start with you. Give me a sense of this dynamic. You all have known each other since middle school.
Yeah, I mean, me and Alex's moms are still neighbors to this day, and collectively, yeah, since middle school, so about 12 or 13 years old. And, you know, we're just all kind of like three unique individuals that happen to become, you know, good friends. And we have the type of friendship, basically, that, you know, we can go a year without talking to each other, and there's no questioning if we're friends or not. You know, we just pick up right where we left off.
And Anthony, this is a group trip. You all are touring Europe.
It was kind of a reunion of some sorts, like 20-something backpacking trip. Yeah. Alec was coming off deployment. Spencer was stationed in Portugal. I was on summer going in my senior year of college, so it seemed like the perfect time to get back together.
Well, it was, but unexpected things happened. Alec, you all are sleeping on the train. You're between Amsterdam and Paris, and you hear this commotion.
Well, I was actually the only one awake. They were asleep, and I was just, you know, texting some friends back home, and I heard a gunshot and breaking glass, and I kind of put my head up, like wondering what was that. And then a train employee comes running away from the noise at a full sprint. That wakes them up, and we all kind of pretty much at the same time look back to see what he's running from and see a shirtless man with an AK. And that was pretty self-explanatory.
And then what happened? What was the conversation like?
Well, there wasn't really any conversation. I mean, we all turned around in our seats and got in like the ready position a little bit. But then I saw that he had either jammed the gun or something happened. He just hadn't started shooting yet, so I figured, you know, this is a window of opportunity. We got to do something. And then Alex said go, and right when he said go, I took off.
Was it instinctive? Why did you take off? I mean, the guy's got an AK. I mean, he can cut right through you.
It just came down to pure survival. We didn't want to die, and there wasn't a whole lot of options. We were going 200 miles an hour on the train in the middle of the countryside. This guy's got an automatic weapon. 300 rounds of ammunition, what are you going to do? You know, you're either going to sit there and die or you're going to get up and do something.
And nobody else was moving.
Everyone was pretty paralyzed, understandably.
Yeah, and you jump in right after Alec. I mean, the three of you move down the aisle together. They're military trained. You're not.
Right.
Any hesitation? Any worry?
Yeah, I was worried initially at first because your eyes see the gunman, but your brain's telling you, no way, this is happening. And then within seconds, Spencer's up tackling him, and I'm kind of process through my head, like, what's he doing? And then he tackles him, and then all my thought process shut down. It was like, now at this point, I just got to go help my friend. So it became once Spencer tackled him, Alec went, then it was like, we're all in at this point.
And I mean, do you think there was any divine intervention here in that this guy he's got this weapon. He tries to shoot you with it, right? Or you try to shoot him. It's jammed.
Yeah, well, Alec tried to shoot him with his handgun, but there was no ammunition in it. But I mean, if you take up on, that's the great thing about the movie, is that people think we just went down there and beat this guy up and that was that.
Right.
There were so many things that went our way and in our favor, and we all believed that was orchestrated by God, and we believed that God put us in that position, you know, and kind of led us throughout our whole entire lives up until that point. We all kind of feel like that was our mission in life to a certain extent. And
the odds of everything happening are just too astronomical to be up to chance. I mean, like he said, the two different guns not going off, us being in that time and place, and just everything that went our way. If one thing went the other way, we'd probably end up dead.
Yeah, and this terrorist, he had a box cutter. He cut you bad.
Yeah, he cut me
cut your finger. I mean, he almost cut your finger off.
Yeah.
And he's slashing the whole time, right, at both of you.
Yeah, well, you know, he's trying to slit my throat, basically, but luckily I had my chin kind of tucked into his back, and that's another fact right there. Okay, yeah, he cut my thumb, but what are the chances that we stop at a train station where the police came on board, and only 45 minutes away, one of the best hand surgeons in France is there, waiting to do my surgery. So that was just another thing, I believe, just like God fully took care of us that day.
Yeah.
It was just pretty crazy. Like each moment, like he goes from AK, then he drops that, then a pistol comes out, and then a box cutter comes out, and we're just like, where is this guy getting all this stuff from? So like, as we're all scrambling around him and this weapons are coming out, it's like a flurry of just different things.
There were two other people that tried to tackle this guy, or at least block him. They were not terribly successful, but they did. Was that before you all?
That was before that we were even aware of anything going on. The names were Damien and Mark McGallion, and Mark McGallion actually plays himself in the movie as well.
Oh, he does
along with his wife. Yeah, and honestly, without them having that initial confrontation with the terrorist and doing what they did, and Mark pretty much taking the bullet for us, we would have never been in the position to do anything.
Was Mark the person shot in the neck, and you really saved his life?
Yeah.
Tell people what happened there. I mean, you're trained as a medic, too.
Yeah, I was a medic in the Air Force, so that came in handy. And, I mean, we just got done kind of choking the terrorist out. He's unconscious at this point. And then Anthony and Alec call it, hey, this guy's been hit, because he had been crawled in between these seats. And first thing I see looking over the seat is him collapsing into the aisle, spewing blood out of his neck. And, I mean, I just knew, you know, I had to go over there and help him do something. I had the training. And so threw him down, make sure this guy doesn't wake up. I crawled over to Mark, took my shirt off. I was going to use that as a bandage to hold pressure with.
Didn't work.
And then, I just, you know, immediately looked at his wound, and there was pressure behind it, so I knew it was his artery. And so I just threw the shirt down, stuck my hand into his neck, found the artery, clamped it off. So.
Wow, unbelievable. Tell me about this movie now. I mean, you wrote a book. Now we've got the movie. Was there any hesitation playing yourselves?
Absolutely.
Alec? I mean, you'd never. I assume you hadn't acted before.
Correct. We have no acting experience. But when Clint asked us to play ourselves, I mean, we at first were like, of course, we'd love the opportunity. Sounds like a lot of fun. And the second he left the room, it was kind of like,
what are we getting ourselves into?
Do we actually want to do it? I mean, because again, we're not actors. It was a huge risk on his part, and it was a risk on our part too, because we didn't know if we were going to be able to pull it off or not.
Right. It being our story too, we didn't want to risk the success of the film basically by going into it and botching the acting job. But his confidence in us gave us the confidence to do it, and in hindsight, we actually are appreciative of it.
Well, I want to play a little clip. This is Clint Eastwood talking about casting these guys in their own story. Watch this.
I've looked at a lot of actors, good actors too, but I kept looking at the guys, and I kept looking at their faces. And finally one day I just said, do you guys think you could play yourself? And the more they thought about it, the more they got with it. And it turned out that they had a lot of natural gift.
Yeah, that's about what he said.
Well, yeah,
Natural gifts, guys.
Hey, that's what we're saying.
So it had to be, though. It's one thing to say, okay, I'm going to play myself. When you get in front of a camera and you've got all these lights and you've got 50 people looking at you, it does change the dynamic. I mean, and particularly if you're not trained to deal with all that incoming. How did you deal with it? And was it difficult reliving what arguably is the most traumatic moment of your life?
You know, It was pretty nerve-wracking for all of us going into our first scenes, for sure. I mean, just because having all those people in the room and you're supposed to be portraying yourself and picking and choosing what you want to share with the world, but also trying to, stay true to who you are. But I think after we got a few scenes under our belt, we kind of fell into it a little bit. Clint Eastwood makes the environment so relaxed and he's so, cool with you and kind of on your level that it just kind of made it easy. But honestly, and then Reliving the Train, it wasn't that hard because we kind of look at all of this as a positive experience for us. And yeah.
Anthony, what was the first scene shot? What are those?
For me, it was a scene where me and Spencer are just in the living room watching a football game, and he's overweight and complaining about
overweight and complaining.
Oh boy, what an opening!
Whiny.
Jenny Craig, spokesman.
Yeah. Right. So we're just sitting down watching a football game, and he's talking about joining the Air Force, and it couldn't have been a better scene for me to come into because just like me and him. And I was nervous because, on set, Clint Eastwood, but it was just really chill. We were just me and him in the living room. And so that was kind of the mantra for the whole shoot. It was just like, do what you do, and Clint was like, I'll do the rest.
Wow. I'm sure it must have been wonderful being called to the set. Overweight guy, go to the set. We need you here. Get out of here. It's awful. Overweight.
Yeah.
The guy.
Hey, no, he's good now.
Yeah, that's what I think when he
I was
walked
wearing
in.
a fat suit at the time that Leonardo DiCaprio just wore, so I was wearing greatness.
Oh, okay. Well, Leonardo didn't need that fat suit, but that's another story. Alec,
Yeah.
what did Clint Eastwood say anything to you or approach this in any way that put you at ease or that brought the best performance out of you?
Oh, absolutely. First of all, he was just so relaxed and so down to earth with us. It was very easy to treat him not as an equal, but definitely we weren't afraid of him either.
You trusted him.
Yeah, we trusted him, and it was very easy to talk to him about what we were worried about and things like that, about the accuracy of the film, and he took care of it. And the other thing was the accuracy of everything. We filmed in the same location, we were wearing the same clothes, had a lot of the same people, like even down to the cross that I was wearing. They matched it almost identically, every little detail. And that made it really easy to get back in basically the same mindset that we were the day everything happened, and it was just like we were reliving it twice.
This sense of faith, and it's not a preachy movie, but that sense of faith that somehow a divine hand is guiding you, that is present here in the film.
Oh, very
How
present.
important was that to you?
Well, very important because, again, looking back, not even realizing it at the time, of course, but looking back, hindsight's always 20/20, but you can see in the movie all these things that even like failures with Spencer joining the Air Force and everything we did as far as like the jobs that we did, the things that we learned, all came into play on the train that day. And we couldn't have really planned it better, but our lives leading up to that point were just basically preparing us for that moment, and that really comes across in the film.
How about you, Anthony? That sense of detail, it seems to me Clint Eastwood had an eye for that faith dimension. He wanted that.
Yeah.
He wanted a light shown on it a little bit.
Most definitely, because he met with us a few times before casting us, so he knew the people we were, he knew the dynamic of who we are and why we did what we did. So from the get-go, he wanted it to be accurate. He didn't want to Hollywood it up or movie it up, so he wanted to tell our story, and he knew that was a part of our story, and he knew that had to do a lot. Faith is what had to do a lot with why we got up that day, so he wanted to make sure that was in the film for sure.
Before I let you go, Spencer, what do you want people to take away from this film?
Well, I just want people to take away that, we are three ordinary guys that were just put into a situation, that was a little extraordinary, and that not just us, but anyone's capable of doing something. If they see something going wrong, you have the choice, and you have more than likely the skills, whether you know it or not, to do something. And hopefully it can just inspire a generation to step up and be less of a bystander.
Did you all know of the guy in 9/11 that his name escapes me? I've interviewed his widow in the past, who, when the plane was, when he saw what was happening, he said, "Let's roll."
Flight 93.
Right. Did you all have any awareness? Did you know of that story when you were in the train?
Yeah.
Oh, so
and I've seen the. Yeah.
I watched the movie
everyone.
shortly before shooting. I've seen it, but I watched it again because I was like, this is really similar to how train down to Iowa, and it was powerful to watch. I've seen it years ago, but to watch it again, it was powerful.
So you knew of that story before you got on the train?
Yes, correct.
Wow. Fascinating. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you for
What a
having us.
film, what an experience, and thank you for daring to step out when others sat in their seat and were willing to take it and be victims. So,
Just didn't want to die.
bless you all. Well, want to die? Well, you're also going out of your way to save others. And look, you all may not have been here if things had turned a different way. So
Absolutely.
the fact that you're willing to do it is a great testament to your character and who you are. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having us.
There you go.
Thank you.
Look at the baby soda, Spencer.
Alex, shut the heck up. You ever just feel like life is just pushing us towards something, like some greater purpose?
The 1517 to Paris, directed by Clint Eastwood and starring all those fellas, Anthony Sadler and Spencer Stone, ALEK SKARLATOS, opens in theaters everywhere on Friday, February 9th.